Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you today on Channel 52. Today, we are going to have an awesome conversation with Paterson School Board Candidates Forum. So, I welcome all of you guys giving me this time from your busy time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So, the first person I'm going to be introducing is going to be Kenneth Simmons. Please introduce yourself and let us know about you and what makes you think of deciding to make this decision to running for the election. But before that, please introduce us about yourself so our audience know you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity. My name is Kenneth L. Simmons. I am the current board president. This is my third term. I've been on the board since for the last 10 years. Prior to being on the board, I coached in the city of Paterson for about 25 years, football, track, and basketball. And so while coaching, I learned that students were falling behind. Students had issues learning, and during that, we created my coaching staff and I created ways for students to catch up with tutoring and mentoring and things like that. And since my time on the board, I've been putting together youth programs, boys and girls leadership summits, so that we can expose boys and girls to possibilities. I'm just a student from Paterson as well, matriculated through the Paterson public school system, but I also represent the possibilities and the hopes of what you can do when you put your mind to it. So deciding to run again was to continue the work that I've been doing for the past 10 years, and that is moving the district closer to local control. Just yesterday, the district's 18-month transition report was received and presented at the State Board of Education, where we received pretty high marks. And so the future looks bright. Our 24-month transition period is done, and we do expect to receive local control sometime in the early part of 2021. So I want to continue the work that I've been doing, and that is to move the district forward, to keep pushing the achievement, closing the achievement gap, and closing the digital divide. But more importantly, to help make sure that we produce productive citizens and those students that are able to compete on the global stage.
Awesome. Thank you. Such a beautiful reason and vision behind it. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The second person I'm going to be introducing is Joel Ramirez. Please introduce yourself and let us know about your journey in life.
Good evening, Amber. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Anam and Farah, for doing what you do with Channel 52 for the community. As you stated, my name is Joel Ramirez. I'm currently on the Board of Education. This is my first term I'm completing, and I'm seeking re-election to my second term. I've been in Paterson since I was 3 years old. I attended Paterson Public Schools until high school, where I went to Passaic County Tech, which has always been kind of an extension of our school because so many of our residents send their children there. Upon completion of my high school education, I went on to college and obtained a bachelor's degree in marketing and then a master's degree in business administration. And for over 15 years, I've been in higher ed administrator. In higher ed is where I saw the deficiencies that our students graduate with from Paterson Public Schools. After seeing their SAT scores, their ACT scores, the Accuplacer exam, which is used by many local community colleges, and seeing their low scores and the areas that they were so deficient in made me think, what could I do to help these young men and women? Because by the time they're going to college, it's too late. After having been involved in numerous boards, I was a member of the Paterson Task Force. I was there for 5 years, the Housing Authority 2 years. I decided, you know what? I know what it takes. I've served. I know governance. And I decided that I was going to run for the Board of Ed because that's where I could best help those young men and women that I would see in higher education. And thankfully, I won in 2017, and here I am again seeking re-election for my second term.
Thank you so much, Joel. The next person I will be introducing is Herman Irving. Please let us know about yourself.
First off, let me say thank you to Channel 52 for the opportunity to allow all of us to, let everybody know why we are running. Good evening, everybody. My name is Herman Irving. I am 5J on the ballot. I am a 15-year veteran of the Paterson Fire Department. I am also a proud member of Bronze Heat, which is our extension of the fire department, but we are a part of an organization known as the IABPFF, which is the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters. I've also had time in the school system. I worked for 7 years as a substitute teacher. Born and raised in Paterson. Went to high school, Rosa Parks School of Fine and Performing Arts, class of 2000, by the way, where I majored. I started out with vocal and then transitioned over to theater. I come from a family of educators. My father was an educator, my mother, my grandmother. Uh, it's something that's always been in our blood. And firefighting was something that I wanted to do because it allowed me to get back to the community and really show and serve others. 2 years ago, while receiving an award for community service, I felt at one point I thought I reached the pinnacle of what I could do for my city. And then I looked down at my daughter, and she was only 2 years old at the time, and I realized that there was so much more that I wanted to do. I'm a Paterson proud man. I love where I come from, and I love the people of my city. And I'm a firm believer in Paterson's education, and I want my daughter to be educated in Paterson. And the one thing that I feel is that if I want her to be educated here, then I need to make sure that things are being done the right way for her to be educated here. I know taking on this task is not an easy task, but I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I'm welcoming the challenge because that is something that I've always done. I'm not a quitter, I'm a fighter. And one thing that I learned is that, if my daughter's here, then guess what? I have over 3,000 more children who I will call my own. There's a lot of things that, that people are not informed about as far as the budget and spending and things of that nature. And for me to come into this, election, what I want to do is I actually want to help people understand, what goes on with the school system, what goes on with the budget. There's a lot of times people are, they just don't have the knowledge for a lot of the things. And it's not to say that, they're not capable of learning it, but sometimes we just have to explain things a little bit more. And, that's why I'm here. I'm here, for my community. I'm here for my people. I'm here for the children. And this is just something that I feel that, when I 2 years ago when I decided to do this, it just felt right, and the time is right for me, and the time is right for my city to have somebody who's there alongside of them to fight with them every step of the way. So I say thank you very much to everybody and welcome.
Thank you very much. I actually really appreciate the cause that you said as a father, which is so dear whenever, that cause is there. Being a father when people are involved, then it becomes very personal. So thank you for sharing that with us. The next person I'm going to be introducing is Jonathan Hogarth. I apologize, his screen is not opening up, but I know that his voice and audio is going to be powerful as well.
Yes, I'm Dr. Jonathan Hodges. I'm a 18-year member of the Paterson Board of Education. I am not from Paterson. I've been here for 33 years, but I came here to do my residency at St. Joe's Hospital. I'm a family practitioner, but I worked in the emergency room for well over a decade. And that's where I encountered Paterson's children. And in conversations during my examinations with them, I discovered that they struggled with education. And that prompted me to go out and spend some time in the schools. visiting the schools, visiting the classrooms, going and holding conversations with administrators and talking to students. I subsequently, the St. Joe's opened a trauma center, and we began to see students in the emergency room who did not have an education, who ended up being killed, who died. And I had to sit there and watch them die. And that caused me a great deal of concern. I subsequently became a member of the school management team at Eastside High School. And then when I saw what was going on in the schools in terms of mismanagement and poor educational services, I ran for the school board. Back then, you were paying $5,000 per student from the state of New Jersey, $5,000 per student. And I launched into a battle to find more funding for the school district. At the same time, we managed to find that $50 million was mismanaged or misplaced here by the superintendent of schools and his administrators. We found that, not the state of New Jersey, we did. And we managed to have him removed, and we've been fighting for educational improvements ever since. We've gone to Trenton and battled for facilities. We've had the SDA, we've gone to their meetings on a regular basis for over a year, every single month except for one, to help get the buildings built, new buildings, new schools, and school improvements here in the city of Paterson. I've testified numerous times before the state board, the assembly, the state senate, for more funding and improved funding for Paterson children. And on the board, I've been a president for three times. I have worked assiduously to improve curriculum, particularly science and technology. Those are that's my major interest. And also improving student skills like note-taking and study skills, and primarily in Paterson, improving the reading scores of students, because as you may or may not know, going from preschool to kindergarten, or to third grade, you learn to read. From third grade on up, you read to learn. And if you have not gotten on grade level by third grade, then it's hard to catch up moving forward. So that's been the struggle. We're making small improvements. When I first got here, there was 12% passage of the high school proficiency test. And now because of the improvements, we're no longer there. We're a lot further along, but we have a long way to go. Back then, you didn't have local control. We were one of the takeover districts. We fought that title and worked to make Paterson a regular school district. And we've been struggling and battling to the point now where we're a month or two away from return to local control. And I want to see that through and finish the educational journey that I started almost 18 years ago. You're muted. We can't hear you. There you go.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for introducing and giving us the history behind the work. Next person I'm going to be introducing is Shaniqua. Please introduce us and let us know. I have heard so much about you. I'm excited to hear more.
Thank you so much, Farah and Channel 52, for having us here today so that the community can hear firsthand from the candidates. Thank you for this opportunity. Good evening, everyone. I am Shaniqua Lemon, 2J on your ballot. I am a resident here in Paterson, born and raised. I was born here in the first ward. I'm actually still here. I attended public schools number 12 and schools number 17. Education in school was always my happy place. So for me, education is at my core. I've always loved school. I went to the teaching academy here in Paterson, and I also went to Ramapo College. I ended up with my degree in psychology. I am currently an educational entrepreneur. I started my own tutoring business here in Paterson. It's called Beyond the Books Tutoring and Childcare. And the reason why I chose Beyond the Books is because when we think of education, it's more than just what a child can read. It's how do they feel confident with what they're learning? How are they applying what they're learning to what they are learning to their own personal life experiences? So with naming my business, I wanted it to be a business that not only wants to have smart children, but to have children and adolescents, youth and teenagers that have a love for learning. And that's what pushed me here to run for a board of education. I was coming across a lot of students in our city here in Paterson that was behind on grade levels. I came across students in 7th grade, 8th grade, and sometimes even high school who were way behind on their reading levels. So that foundation was never set in place for them. It was more of a pass along system. And it got to the point where it's how did you continuously get pushed along and you can't form sentences, you can't write. So it really started to tug on my heart. As a business owner, I was getting the clientele, so it was no complaints there. But I wanted to push our students farther than just catching them up. I wanted to be a tutor. I want to be a tutor that is able to push them beyond just, helping them with their homework. I want to challenge them. I'm able to do that with other clients outside of Paterson, and it just became a problem with me that I couldn't push our students past just getting them to the bare minimum. So that's exactly what brought me here to this position of running for Paterson School Board. And also growing up, I didn't have that family support, or I didn't have the parents who were involved with my education. I was just blessed to just have a passion for learning myself. So for me, it's more important for me to be an advocate for those children who do not have anyone speaking for them. As a business owner, I'm able to connect with parents who, they want their children to get the extra services. They're going outside of the educational system for their children to succeed. But there's so many children in our city who they're alone when it comes to their education, and even they're alone in their lives in general. So it's important for education in our schooling system to really step in and to help give them the tools so that they can succeed. I remember even when I was in college, I took a course, student literacy course, and we were going to School 28 to tutor the children. And I was living directly in Building 145 Presidential, which is across the street from School 28. And I remember sitting in class, and one of the students, this is right before we were going, and one of the students, his exact words were, "Why do we even have to go there? They don't want to learn. They don't care." And I literally bust out in tears crying that day in class. And I turned to him and I said, "I live exactly across the street from this school, and I'm here in this classroom with you." So it's important for me to be that example, to show our children that no matter what your family is, where you live in Paterson, you can succeed. And I'm honored that I'm able to help our children, whether it's partnering with other organizations, whether it's teaming up with the church, creating my own programs. I was able to create online services. Once the pandemic hit, I was able to open up and offer math tutoring sessions free to our students. I was able to start a Brown Faces book club. I even was honored to tutor our own Mayor Sayers kids, well, his oldest daughter. I even had the honor of tutoring them. So it's important to me to include everyone. It doesn't matter what skin color we are or what side of town that we live in. All of our students need our support. So that's why I'm here running for school board, so that I can be a living example, show them the example of we have the power inside of ourselves, no matter what our background is. And to want to take my educational experience and instead of just dealing with my clientele, bring it to all the children here in Paterson, all 28,000 of them.
Beautiful. You gave such a beautiful example, and I'm glad that you shared about School 28. And now you see that school is a blue ribbon school now, so they're doing really well. The next person I'm going to introduce needs no introduction. Our councilwoman at large, Lisa Meem, and I'm so honored to have her on this panel. And she's going to be, we will be working together. Thank you, Councilman, for joining us.
You're welcome, Amber, and thank you to Channel 52. As you know, education is very passionate to me, and it is my heart. I want to thank Channel 52 for saying, believing in the educational system for our children, and also asking me to be co-facilitator with someone as awesome as Amber Hupp, Commissioner Amber Hupp. So looking forward to tonight. We have some great questions. Paterson, please listen to these amazing candidates. One of the things I will always say is it's really it's vital that we have great people that sit on our school board advocating, fighting, and pushing forward thorough and efficient education for all of our children. So I commend all 6 of you for taking a step to do that for our kids and those that are going for re-election. So congratulations to all of you. You're all winners in my book. The fact that you chose to step up, I say congratulations for that. And so I think we've already done all the introductions, correct, Amber?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just go over some of the instructions. Each of you will be asked the same questions. You will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. If you don't understand the question, you can feel free to re-ask the question or ask us to restate the question. Okay, we'll start in order. Do we have everyone? I don't see Danya. Is Danya on tonight?
No, Donnie is not on tonight.
Okay, so we'll start in order. So we'll start with Dr. Hodges, then we'll go with Shaniqua Lemon, then we'll go with Joel Ramirez, Commissioner Ramirez, Herman Irvin, and then Commissioner Simmons. The first question is, what is your vision for education in this community?
It is my hope and in my intent to see Paterson achieve education that models excellence. We have bright students. We have a brand new curriculum, which has to be implemented appropriately. And if we can get it implemented appropriately and our students trained to be students with note-taking skills, study skills, appropriate reading abilities, then there's no reason why our kids can't be excellent educational scholars moving forward. It is my hope additionally to further improve the facilities in this city, because we currently have some of the worst school facilities in the state of New Jersey, and I have fought really hard to help improve that over the years. And if we can do that in combination with our curriculum, we can create an educational environment that is on par with our surrounding communities and move our children forward. We have a long way to go. And we've made substantial strides, and I personally am interested in improving our science and technology output on behalf of our students.
Thank you, Dr. Hodges, in less than 2 minutes. Our next, Shaniqua Lemon, please.
And the question was my vision for our school system.
What is your vision for education in the Paterson community?
So my vision for education would want to be facilities. If I was able to learn in a science lab and have a real art room, I could imagine all the other possibilities that could have been there for me. So I would say state of the art facilities for our students so that they can engage and really have hands-on experience. Definitely more of our students graduating, not only graduating, but for them to have avenues after they graduate, to make sure that they're going on to colleges and to make sure that they have jobs waiting for them. So establishing more internships and mentoring programs for them. In our community, we have so many entrepreneurs and so many businesses. If we're able to link our students with hands-on experience while they're in school and possibly even setting up job opportunities for when they walk out of the door, that would be amazing. I would say also, instead of focusing more on test scores, focusing more on life skills, allowing our children to understand financial responsibility, understanding what it means to file taxes and to be an entrepreneur in general, home ownership, so that when they do graduate and they do go to college, those that go away out of state, that they're able to come back and actually invest in our education system. Again, on more mentorship programs, there's a lot of influential people in our city, but I feel like we need to always reach back and grab a child, even have our older students partner up with our younger students and create our own type of brother and sister programs where our younger students can have older people in the buildings to look up to and to share experiences with. I would like to see an education system where students literally love to come to school. And if it's going to be remotely, they will love to log onto their computers, however much longer that's going to take. So education system that will build lifelong learners.
Thank you so much, Shaniqua. Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you for the question, Councilwoman. So my vision for education, or my hope really for the education in Paterson, is that we can first get to the finish line of local control, which is extremely important because we will then truly be able to make the decisions that are going to affect our district completely right here from Paterson. So we don't have to count on Trenton having to check in on us or telling us we could do something or we can't do something. My hope is that every child in Paterson can perform like a child from any of the best or most high-performing school districts in the state of New Jersey. That we can distribute the resources necessary so that our children get the tools to be successful. And that happens by putting the tools right in the teacher's hands so that they can help our students become successful. Third, that politics be taken out of education in the city of Paterson. I think sometimes Paterson gets in the way, politics gets in the way of education in Paterson, and it interrupts bold decision making and it interrupts people who have the right vision for our district. So first, let's get across the line for local control, and then let's make sure that teachers have the right resources, and that takes bold decision making. And I think we have a team in place right now that can do that, and that's why we are seeking re-election.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ramirez. Mr. Herman Irving.
Yes. I think first and foremost, after we have local control, I think one of the most important things that we have to do is get the student, teacher, and parent, get the families and the teachers and the students back together and get them involved heavily back into the education system. One thing that I've noticed as a substitute teacher, there was a disconnect, between the teachers and the parents, and when that happens, if there's an issue that pertains to the students, it causes an issue. And sometimes when the disconnect happens, the child's not able to learn and the child's not able to succeed. So I think that's one of the most important things that we need to work on. Another thing that I feel like we all need to work on too is social and emotional learning, and that's something where we don't know what goes on with our young men and women at home. We don't know what happens when they're out on the streets, and a lot of times they come to school and they have a lot of issues, that are going on. And if we don't know the signs and we don't see the signs on how to help them, it becomes a problem. And a lot of times, children are labeled as bad kids. They're labeled as kids who aren't willing to learn. But sometimes the reason why they have these issues is because we don't know what's going on, and we need to work on that. We need to make sure that we hit those signs, see the signs, and interject ourselves immediately, so that way we can avoid everything happening to them, and stop that downward spiral for our young men and women. And lastly, I would just say, just having a safe environment. I mean, whether it be, battling, COVID with everything that's going on, and finding a way to get our young men and women back into school. Let's, start to have the resources available for our young men and women to where they can have more after school programs and more activities for these after school programs. And it allows them to have a nice safe haven, to where, they don't have to, leave and go right out into the streets. Like, they have somewhere where they can go, they can get their education done, and, they can learn, and they can just have everything, you know, right in the palm of their hands. And that way it allows them to become, better students, and it allows them to, have a better chance of succeeding. So that's, my thought, and that's what I would like to do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Irvin. Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. So my vision for education in the city of Paterson is one that teaches students, gives students, equips students with the skills that they need to be successful in this new age, in this new world, and with the focus on relevant and rigorous and innovative academics, one that is supported by safe and healthy learning environments, one that is also supported by informed and engaged parents and stakeholders. Um, and everything we do, from effective and sustainable business practices to hiring effective leaders and teachers, all of those decisions that we make to do those things should focus on student achievement and making sure that students are successful, they're productive, and we're producing the best product that the world has to offer.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Straightforward and to the point. The next question. So for that question, we gave 2 minutes. For some of the questions, we'll give a little bit more time because it requires more information. So we may say to you that this question you have up to 3 minutes, okay? This is our second question. Every year, our school district faces a budget deficit. What are your ideas in resolving the deficits that we face over the years for our Paterson school system? We'll start this time with Commissioner Simmons.
So, as we know, the district has historically and for years been underfunded. So, I know that the governor has a plan to fully fund school districts within 7 years, and we are in the, I believe, third year of the governor's plan. So there are some things that need to happen on both ends. Besides being fully funded by the state, the district also has to, one of the things I mentioned early in the first answer is to implement effective and sustainable business practices. I think a lot of times when in education, we forget that it is actually a business, right? And producing productive students is the goal. But if you don't have proper business practices, a lot of times you run into budgetary issues. So if we use this year as the example, we had a $63 million budget deficit. The board worked hard, and we were aggressive at reducing that gap and closing that gap to within $14 million. So once we close that gap, and cutting everywhere we can cut, making sure we were assessing programs that were ineffective and doing away with those things and moving money around to where it needed to be moved to, we still found ourselves with a $14 million deficit. And at that point, you have to advocate for more. One of the things I was able to do this year is call a meeting with the state commissioner and his team, and invited some additional board members into that meeting, along with our local legislators and state level legislators, to talk about the funding issues. When we left that meeting, we were poised to receive the money to cover that $14 million gap, and then COVID happened. So we still were able to get through and cover and get through without cutting staff, because as you know, when you cut staff, it also affects the classroom in ways that are detrimental to the students. So looking at all of that, making sure you have sound business practices, constantly advocating for full funding, those are the key components to making sure that we address consistent
Thank
budget
you, Mr.
issues.
Simmons. Mr. Hodges.
Well, we have, well, thank you for the question, and thank you, Channel 52, for the forum. This is a serious problem. We have struggled with this from the very first time I got on the board. I have had to fight along with the Educational Law Center, who managed to, in the Abbott decision, bring us from $5,000 per student up to where we are now. This is $18,000 per student. The money that we have received so far is not what we need to from the state, is not what we need to get us to deliver a thorough and efficient education. The Supreme Court decision, which has granted us the additional funding so that we are supposed to receive money from the state that will not only give us a thorough and efficient education, but allow us funding to catch up from the loss of money that we had before. Therefore, my approaches are, number one, make sure that our fiscal practices are where they need to be, that we are making, that we're not spending money needlessly, that we are very thoughtful and wise with our contracts and purchases, and then we have to go and fight for it from the state of New Jersey. 80% of our funding comes from the state of New Jersey. The rest comes from Paterson. And since we are short, we're going to have to go and fight for the funding from the state of New Jersey in order to bring us where we need to be. And I know that the governor has in fact said that he wanted to bring us up to full funding, but during the Christie administration, we lost $280 million because of illegally short funding us. And that has caused us to howl out our system, to cause us to have a shortage of teachers, which leads to increased class sizes and loss of educational program. It has in effect howled out our educational system here in the city of Paterson. And we have to speak up and fight for our children in order to make those situations better for our students, which means going to Trenton, as I have in the past, and fighting for additional funding.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hodges. Joel Ramirez, Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you again for the question, Councilwoman. So I've mentioned some of these things before. In order to get more funding, we know that we can't continue going to the taxpayers, even though our taxpayers are only paying about $43 million of the 90-something million they should be paying locally. The rest should be coming from the state and federal agencies. And unfortunately, it's not coming in the amounts that we need in order to provide a thorough and efficient education. So some things that we could do locally to try to alleviate this constant shortfall until we get fully funded. Number one, which I'm very happy to say that the board has taken steps and made it one of our goals to begin this year, restructuring of the high schools, JFK, Eastside, perhaps some of the academies, which that altogether could lead up to a $4 million administrative savings, ending the triple net leases that we have across the district. 90 Delaware alone costs us $3 million a year. If we can move into another location, that's a conversation that has already started, and we can end that, and it would be a savings of over $3 million with the other triple net leases that we have. Streamlining non-student center positions could provide also a savings. Sometimes everybody doesn't need a secretary. so that could provide a few $100,000 of savings. And finally, seeking the legal route. As Dr. Hodges mentioned, we do have a Supreme Court decision that the state needs to provide us funding to provide a thorough and efficient education. And we need to join forces with districts like Newark and Jersey City and some others in order to make sure that the law is followed and adhered to. So those are some of my suggestions to lowering administrative costs, saving money. I think I mentioned all in all, right there is over $8 million in savings and money. We just need a board that makes bold decisions. And that is why I'm seeking re-election.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ramirez. Before we move on, Commissioner Irving, you're next. Dr. Hodges, we're getting requests. I'm not sure if you're able to turn your camera on, but we're getting, you can't turn it on. Okay, so I just want to put it on record because people are asking, and I know they're probably some of your supporters, they're asking. So he cannot turn it on. So Mr. Irving.
I do apologize.
Thank you. Mr. Irving.
Yes, I'm here. In my response, I first thing we need to do is advocate to fight for more funding. That's something that has been an issue, I know, for a while now, and I know the state, gives us some money, but let's be real, they need to give us all the money because there are a lot of things that our young men and women in our city need. As somebody who I was a member of my union, I know the importance of how much funding is important for us and for what it is that we need. And our children are very, very important, and they need to be funded, and they need to be given the tools and the resources as well. So for me, that's the most and absolute important thing that I think that needs to happen, is to make sure that happens as well. Advocating to the state, we have to make sure that that we do hold them hold them accountable for everything that they say that they're going to give us. And over the past couple of years, they haven't given us that. So we need to make sure that we stay on them with that, so that way our children are able to be very successful.
Thank you, Mr. Irving. Mrs. Shaniqua Lemon.
Thank you for that question. Since we are illegally underfunded, my first action would be to take legal action to demand the money that we have been owed for years. The budget and the cost of providing education for our students is only going up, and it's going to be an everlasting catch-up game if we're not given the money that has been promised to us for years. So legal action is definitely one of my top steps to take. After doing some research, it just amazes me how the state can spend $60,000 for prisoners, but only our children are getting $15,000 for education. So that right there is just ethically wrong. I would definitely say go after private grants. There's money out there. We just have to have a team that can fight for additional monies that can come directly to our school district. I would definitely say monitoring the contracts of outsourcing contracts that we have with other companies. When we know that a contract is up, really evaluate the service that they have been given to us. And if that they have reached, they're part of the contract and they did a good job, then, negotiate. But if they didn't do a great job, let's not stay with that contractor. Let's go and seek other people that can do a better job. So make sure that the money that we're giving out is worth spending on. So again, it's legal action, looking for private grants and other monies that can come in through, whether it be celebrities, literally go out and try to find any monies that we can bring into for our children, and then monitor contracts that we give and outsource to other people.
Thank you, Ms. Lemon. Commissioner Amber?
Yes, so I'm going to ask the third question, and it's going to be 3 minutes time. The order will be Ms. Lemons, Ramirez, Erin, Dr. Hager, and Mr. Simmons. So the question is, if you could name 2 issues concerning the education of our children receiving, what would those be? And what do you recommend as a solution?
And I'm first.
Yes.
So being an early childhood educator, I stand strongly in building a great foundation for our early childhood learners. We cannot wait until our children are in fifth, sixth grade to realize that they have a problem. We need to get our children younger than 5. I start at 3 years old, really setting that core foundation for them to be able to read. If we're going to restructure the high schools, we should also look into our early childhood program to really start to set that foundation for our children. So I would say even restructuring early childhood. I know there's different pockets and other organizations that offer education for our younger children. So maybe we can partner with them and try to restructure even early childhood education. High school, they're already, not to say it's too late for them, but if we start from the beginning, that can definitely be a way to restructure our education system. The second problem would be engagement. As far as with parents and the community, I see the district doing so many programs through their parent university, and I would like to team up with them once I'm a board member to really see how we can get creative and think extremely outside of the box to get our parents and our community engaged. I know right now everything is social media based and things are posted on Facebook, but not everyone is on Facebook. Not everyone is on social media. So even if we have to go back to mailing out things or really putting together a monthly calendar or even a quarterly calendar of all the programs that are going to be offered, all the opportunities that parents in the community can get involved so they can be aware of what's going on. Looking out into the community, I see when people say, oh, I just heard about this today, or I wasn't aware of this. But if we start to give real advance notice and put more effort into our programs and find ways to be more engaged. So early childhood education, setting that foundation from a real early standpoint with our children, getting them excited about learning so that as they go on, it won't be so hard for them to have those building blocks. And also engaging our community and really truly finding ways to reach our parents. Because without our parents, it goes hand in hand. When they leave from school, where are we going? Where are they going? After school programs, just building that community where even whether at school or out of school, they always have that support that they need. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next person is Commissioner Ramirez, and I would request you to keep your camera on, please.
Okay. All right. So let me not only answer the question of the actually 2 things that I see that are affecting the education of our children in our district, but also to make some correction. Number 1, our early childhood education program is considered one of the best in the state by the state. Okay, so we do have a great early childhood education program. We've done many things in the district to help, like a 501c3, which is getting us funding from other nonprofits and other governmental agencies, grants to help meet the needs of the children in our district. We've done things like implemented the halal food program, which I was the person that actually pushed for it, but my colleagues on the board supported because I cannot do anything alone. It takes the majority to make things happen in education and in government. So I thank Commissioner Simmons, Commissioner Castillo, and all my colleagues that supported that. As we know, if a child is not well nourished, they're not learning, they're not paying attention. So we met the needs of our large Muslim population this past year with increasing and putting halal food in every school where there's a significant number of Muslim adherents. 2 things that I think need special attention in our district currently. The implementation of the curriculum needs to be done effectively. For the first time in recent history, in over 20 years, Paterson has a universal curriculum. So you can go from school 3 or school 5, and the child is going to be learning the same. Now, we need to work on the implementation because that's the growing pains of bringing something new. Now, a child is not going to be left behind, let's say, for lack of a better term, if they go from one school to another in the district, because now we have a universal curriculum. Second, our aging buildings are a big deterrent to education in Paterson. A child cannot learn properly if the facilities there are in have leaky roofs, if the bathrooms are outdated. I'm not sure if anybody's been into the bathrooms at Eastside High School, but I have, and they're stuck in 1940. We need to change this throughout the district. That's why we've taken the bold decisions to close 2 buildings in the district this year, School 14 and the Urban Leadership Academy, because the buildings were just not sustainable. They could not be used to give a high performing educational environment to our students. So we are doing the things that need to be done. That is why yesterday the State Board of Education lauded Paterson for the work that we have been doing. So those are 2 main issues that I currently see that we need to work on going forward. There are many issues. We're a large district, but trust me when I tell you the work is getting done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Herman Livings.
Yes. 2 things I would say. One, I am gonna follow behind Commissioner Ramirez. Is the curriculum. Our city is moving in the right direction with everything that needs to be done, and I definitely applaud them for that, because that is something that I've known, and myself going around and talking to some of the parents already, that they said was something that was an issue, that they didn't like the fact that in school 4 the curriculum would be one way, but in school 10 it would be something different. So the fact that we now have something that's set in place and that's implemented to allow our young men and women to learn the same way across the board is a great thing, and I applaud that. Same thing again, like I said before, funding, and funding for recreation. It's just something that just needs to be there, and we have to find the ways to get it, and we have to find the ways to make it happen, and we need to expand it. Our young men and women, they need it. I can say personally how that helped me when I was in after school programs, because when you have somewhere to go, it keeps you away from everything else that's out there. Talking to one of the parents, and that being one of my biggest things is making sure that we have recreation set in place. One of the parents said, why we really think that's just something that needs to increase, and I said my reasons as to why, and what they told me was a great reason as well too. Our young men and women, they love sports, they love going out to play, they love having a great time. But when you're inside the after school program, and you have all the things to do, what's the first thing that you have to complete in order for you to go out there is your homework, and your assignments. So when I was in school, that was one of the things that I knew I had to get done, and I also knew that I had to do it correctly, and that was one of the most important things. So when you have people that are around our young men and women that care about them, and that care about their education, and care about them being safe, these are the things that we need to have implemented. These are the things that need to stay, in our schools, and in the budget, and not, be cut or short. These are the things that need to happen, and we need to make it happen.
Thank you so much. The next person is gonna be Mr. Jonathan Hogarth, please.
Would you repeat the question, please?
The question is, if you could name 2 issues concern the education of our children are receiving, what would those be? And what are your recommendations in the solution towards it?
Well, let me make a correction on what I've heard here so far. While our early childhood program has been lauded by the state, it does not leave our children after 2 years with a large percentage of them able to read. Districts outside of Paterson who aren't urban, those students are able to read by 3 years old and 4 years old because of the participation of their parents and the engagement of their parents. And that's one thing I've been pushing, is to force our early childhood program to produce more reading capable students in kindergarten. So though the state lauds us, we are still deficient in that one area. And to the point, student skills is a major concern for me. Um, Training our students, number one, with the ability to read, and that's the gateway to entire education, is having them reading on grade level before third grade. And we've got a brand new reading program. Unfortunately, we've not been able to gauge its performance because of the COVID situation, and it has made it very difficult to get a good sense of where we are. But that's the true power of education, is being able to read. The earlier we can start students to read, the more effective students will be in their educational process. Our curriculum is, I'm also told to be lauded by the state. It's a good curriculum, but the problem is the implementation has not been where it needs to be. We have teachers who have not had professional development that they need in order to implement the curriculum, and that costs money. It takes time and money to do that, and those two areas are major concerns that we have to work on, and developing stronger students, a stronger educational system in the city of Paterson. And I'm going to add, in addition to that, I know you said two, but I'm going to give you a third one: hands-on experiences for students, both in classroom instruction and in clubs after school, so that they get a chance to learn how to use the information that they receive and the training that they receive in classrooms. That's extremely important. So when they go outside of our city, they will already be equipped with the abilities to function and to utilize the education that we provide them. So when they go to college, they're not outdistanced by other students who had that experiences. So it's important to train our students and to give them opportunities to use to have hand-on experiences via, again, clubs and classroom instruction. You're muted, Amber. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Dr. Hodges. The next person is Kenneth Simmons.
Thank you. And it's hard to pin this down to just two, so I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try really hard. But just given the current climate, the number one issue right now for me is the ability to open schools safely. Since COVID, we've been closed since March. The district has done a phenomenal job at putting a reopening plan together, but at some point we'll need to implement that plan. But we'll have to look at the science and look at the data before we can even talk about implementation. So we do have an assessment coming up to review that data, to make a determination on whether or not we can open safely. And if we can, we will. And if we can't, we will not open safely, because students are a priority, teachers, and families. So we want to make sure that we can open safely. That's number one. Number two has been the digital divide. This COVID situation has been a blessing and a curse. It is a curse because of all of the deaths that we've seen and how it devastates families. But the blessing, or the silver lining, as I like to call it, is that it has exposed the inequities. So the digital divide is huge. We did not, going into this, we did not have a device for every student. Fortunately, through my years in IT, I've established some pretty decent contacts, and we were able to I was able to connect the district with a vendor that could actually deliver and to make sure every student had a device. Although they have a device, we still have to get through the fact that this is still a learning curve for many of them, not only just the students, just the parents as well. So we have to now address and tackle those those issues, those concerns, bring students up to speed on using devices, making sure students have Wi-Fi access, which we do have, but we have to do something different. And one of the things I've been thinking of is, the ability to become our own ISP. Then we wouldn't have to rely on Verizon or Optimum or Altice. So those are some of the biggest issues right now for me. And I said I was going to try to keep it at 2, but but as Dr. Hodges said and Commissioner Ramirez said, the curriculum. Our curriculum is now aligned with state standards, and for a long time it wasn't. But that is because the state over the years have changed their standards. Like every 4 or 5 years, the state has changed their standards, and so which is why you've seen different testing assessments from ASK and HESPA and to PARC and now NJ SLA. So it's difficult to keep your curriculum aligned to the standard when the standard is constantly changing. So in order to implement it with fidelity, you need, I'm sorry. I'm done. Hands up. Like chopped. Like chopped.
She's the nice facilitator. She's the nice facilitator.
Okay, so I'm going to ask another question, and we're going to go in the same order. We're going to be starting with Ms. Limon, and it's actually because of the time restraint. It's 2 questions in one. In the midst of Black Lives Matter, what are your thoughts about the school system, and how are you going to be handling with this sensitivity towards this issue? The second part is, what are your plans regarding the special need and the lack of funding? That question is very important to me because, my background is special need, and I'm also part of early childhood education. So I start with Ms. Lamont because I know your background is early childhood.
In regards to the first question about Black Lives Matter and the sensitivity to the students, when it comes to Black Lives Matter, and actually what that whole movement is another reason why it pushed me into this position, because I felt like we need to put ourselves in areas, whether it's to hold the office or not, to put ourselves in positions where we be an example for our children. So along with Black Lives Matter, for me, it's about educating the children about the past and the history and where we got to and where we are today, but also to encourage them to understand how all lives do matter. I strongly believe that, but to have them understand their value and inclusiveness with all lives matter, for them to not just worry about the history of, I came from slaves, and just to have that, for them to feel that negativity, but for them to learn that we blossomed from that. So to move forward with their ability to understand their past, and also how we're still here, and we as African Americans, as people of color, no matter what shades of Black and brown you are, your life matters, and it's up to us to take who we are as individuals and every day work towards building a better Paterson, building a better New Jersey, building a better world in general. So when it comes to our children with Black Lives Matter, that's why my Brown Faces Book Club, it was in a folder for over 2 years. And once this pandemic happened, I came up with a way to include books to let our children learn about their past, but to also allow them to see how they can grow from it. And your second question, it was about special ed funding.
Yes.
So with my experience dealing with some of the students here in Paterson, I know that some of the resources that are granted to them through IEPs, it wasn't happening for them. So I'm a big advocate for, if I come across parents who they might have some questions about their students' abilities, or I would ask them if IEP has been developed, and they'll say, I don't know. I always try my best to get them to the right individuals to help them get the resources that they deserve. From my research and just listening into school board meetings, from my understanding, there was a shortage as far as offering those services to the students. So it is important to give them those resources because their families or their parents may not be educated in methods and techniques that they need to learn. So it is definitely important to give them those resources and make sure that they are there and accessible to them. If Paterson specifically cannot give them those resources due to funding, how can we partner with other organizations or outside sources to give them those additional funding, additional programs?
Thank you so much. The next person is Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you for the question, Amber. So I'm proud to know and be personal and close friends with one of the I would say national, almost international leaders of the BLM movement, Zelly Thomas, who graduated high school with me. And, he's an educator in Paterson Public Schools, and he's made us proud. And as a school district, as a board, we've supported students who have gotten involved in activism as well as our staff. I know I personally have, and many of my colleagues have, because it is extremely important. We've come to a point in our nation's history that we can no longer look the other way, and we need to stand with each other. And part of education is teaching and giving freedom to our students and our staff to become involved in civic activism that is going to result in peaceful movement and that is going to result in positive change for our society. Just recently, with full support of our board and our superintendent, our high school football team took a knee before the start of the game during the national anthem in solidarity with this movement and in solidarity with all that's been happening that throughout the country to try to end this systematic wrongdoing of African Americans and people of color. And we've wholeheartedly supported that. Our district has been a leader in implementation of the Amistad curriculum also, so that the children in our district know the history of slavery and what came from that and to what point we are now, which leads into the BLM movement. And I'm very proud that we have so many people in our city that are extremely involved on a national level with that. And I'm in full support of everything that the movement has been doing because they've maintained peaceful activism for change. When it comes to special needs, again, that's part of budgeting. There are laws that mandate the funding for special needs. So when the district is short funded, everyone is short funded. But we have made sure that every budget, since I've been on the board, we make sure that the special needs program is the last program touched if it has to be touched, because we have made sure that we are not cutting resources of the special needs students. Almost perfect timing.
Amber, you're muted.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry about that. Mr. Herman, you're next.
Thank you. Black Lives Matter movement is something that's very important to all of us, and and to all of us, I say, what needs to be done is everybody globally needs to understand the situation and the plight that is going on. We're in a very difficult time, and it's a time that's similar to other eras, to where minorities like
Mr.
myself
Herman,
and
can you
others
speak a
are.
little louder?
I'm sorry. We're at a point to where minorities such as myself and others feel like more needs to be done as far as helping us and allowing people to understand what it is that we're going through. And I think one of the best ways to do that is by implementing something into our school systems. And one of those things being the Amistad Commission. For those who don't know about the Amistad Commission, it's something. It's a plan that is developed to help our young men and women understand the history of what's gone on with African Americans and with Africans and our descendants, and how everything came about. I think that's one of the most important things that needs to happen, because in order for people to understand where we are and what we're going through, they should go back and understand the history of what's gone on as far as the civil rights, the civil rights movement, with things that involve Dr. King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, all of our African American leaders, back then that fought for us. Our young men and women understanding this and hearing this and reading it can inspire them and motivate them to do the exact same things and stand up and fight and not be afraid to fight. So, as far as that goes for the Black Lives Matter movement, that's my thought on that. As far as for special needs, more funding has to happen, and it needs to. My fire department and I, there have been times where we've done T-shirts, and we've also done fundraisers to help to help special needs, like in hospitals. And one thing that we also said that we wanted to start doing is start helping the public school systems, like with funding as well. But more importantly to that, more funding has to come from the state, and that is the most important thing. We've been underfunded for years, and our special needs programs have taken a significant hit from it. With my experience of working as a state delegate in legislation with our fire department, I am one person who is not afraid to go down to Trenton and fight on the behalf of the funding that needs to be given to our young men and women. And with that,
I'm sorry, your time
sitting
is
down.
up.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sitting down with our parents just to come up with ideas of how we can help out our special needs children. Sorry about that.
Okay. The next person, Mr. Hodges.
Even though I was born in this country, I had to steal my education. I had to use false addresses in order to go to schools that weren't in my neighborhood, so that I could get a decent education. And that's why when I came to Paterson, I recognized and became very concerned about the educational levels of students. When you give students a decent education, you give them educational options that they can choose a different life, better opportunities to move forward in a lifetime. And that is a major concern. I stood in the emergency room and watched kids die from gunshot wounds and stabbings that were caused by fellow people of their own individual races. And that is a major concern. I watched people get shot, or people who were shot by police officers in our system. And it underscored the importance for me to have kids educated so they can decrease those encounters, give them something to work forward to, and look forward to work harder to get themselves out of the encounters which are so life-threatening and damaging to their futures. So education is extremely important to me just for that reason. In terms of special services, we need to have increased monitoring of the programs that we provide to our students, making sure that they are rolled out the way they're supposed to be, and that the teachers are implementing the IEPs, and that parents are kept in the loop as much as possible. In addition to that, there are service professionals that we need to forced the state to increase certifications on, because they changed the rules and made it harder for us to obtain those services in our community and across the state. Those are some things that I've advocated for. I've suggested that we bring some of those things in-house and supply them to county-wide, so that we can make sure that our students receive special services training here as appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Hager. Your time is up. Next person is Kenneth Simmons.
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was, in the midst of Black Lives Matter's how do you think that we should be dealing with the sensitivity of the issue? And the second part was with special need fundings and with the lack of fundings, what is your plans to deal with special needs?
So as it relates to Black Lives Matter, I'm the father of three sons. So, I am constantly worried about their safety. When I was 15, right here in the city of Paterson, I watched a good friend, Roberto Rosa, uh, be shot and killed by a rookie officer while he was handcuffed. So I think in terms of the sensitivity, um, you know, we have the Amistad Act, but I think we need a more robust Amistad curriculum that goes beyond slavery and Jim Crow, and talks about um, you know um, the things that Black and Brown people alike have contributed um, to this country and to the society at large. And so I think you start there in educating folks beyond slavery, beyond Jim Crow, and so that we understand people. In terms as it relates to special services, again, it's advocating for funding, but making sure that we are able to hire those teachers with those specific certifications. Um, they are some of the hardest jobs to fill. They're some of the hardest vacancies to fill, but largely because people aren't getting those certifications because the rules have changed. So we have to fight the state with that. But if we have outsourced services, but we have to again monitor and make sure that the students are receiving those services. But between monitoring the services and advocating for the funding and making sure during budget crunch that the budget for special services is not touched, and we are adamant about that. Do not touch anything special services. And I was going to say something, but it might get me in trouble. But the superintendent understands that you do not touch special services, or there are going to be problems. So I'll put it that way.
You ended on the perfect timing. So, Councilwoman, the next question is yours. You got the floor.
Thank you. And when in doubt, Commissioner Simmons, don't say it. Don't say it. So those are great. Thanks, Commissioner Amber, for those amazing questions. They were amazing. We are currently facing a pandemic. Around the 16th of March, took this world by storm. Our children are now in a position of remote learning. There were some decisions that were made regarding our children for their safety and well-being. What is your position on remote learning for our children, as well as when do you think our children should return to school? Mr. Irving?
My apologies. Using a restroom. But yes,
TMI.
I think this is something that's very, very important. And the reason why I feel that way is, as a firefighter and civil service employee, I was out in the middle of everything that happened with COVID-19, and I've seen the issues that it has caused, and the destruction that it has actually left people, in their families, and as well as lifestyle, as far as their work, and and as far as now with education with our young men and women. um, I think the school, I think the Board of Education is doing everything they can to try to have things implemented and set in place to get our young men and women back into school. But at this point in time, I think with everything that is going on, I don't think that is the right move to make. And I think everybody else would agree with me on that. There is a fear of a second wave coming. And, with that fear coming, more guidelines need to be put in place, more safety measures need to happen. And I think this is where we all need to buckle down and work together to make sure these things happen. my department that I worked with, my fire chief did a great job of making sure that things were implemented and done safely with our coworkers. And, we have had a great job with making sure that, we have not spread anything in our department. And I think by being able to use the resources from, from the department that we have, and trying to integrate that with the school board, that's a great way for us to make sure that our young men and women are able to go to school safely and come home from school safely. So that's my thought on it.
Thank you, Mr. Irvin. Mr. Joel Ramirez.
Can you hear me? Okay. So the answer in simple is when it's safe. When the scientists and the experts and the Department of Health says it is safe. Just in the last 2 days, we've seen an increase that is tremendous since May in positives. Over 1,300, if I'm not mistaken, were received yesterday or today of positives in New Jersey. So we're seeing a spike. In Ocean County, there was a spike. Throughout the state, there's been a spike. So, when it's safe, that is when our children and our teachers and our employees should return to our buildings. And then is our plan going to make sure that we keep them safe? We have a very robust reopening plan that we developed earlier, that then we changed and went virtually, which I was extremely happy to support because it was the right thing to do. We would not, and I would never support anything that puts our children and our teachers in harm's way. The best thing we did as a district was to put that investment into the Chromebooks with Wi-Fi so that we could go virtually. How do I feel about virtual education? Well, I've taken online classes when I was in grad school here and there. It's not the best. It has its challenge for adults. I can only imagine for children. I can only imagine for the adults in our district that are parents who may not know technology, who may not speak English as their first language. It's difficult, but we're getting and we're pulling through. We're in this together. We're not the only district going and facing these challenges. We are every day looking at what we can do better. And I think we're going to get through this, but we cannot open until it is completely safe, not just for someone's opinion to say that, but for us to have the data, because we should be and we are data driven.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Dr. Hodges.
I am, even though I thought the remote learning plan by the district was a very good one, I was the only one who voted against it. As a physician, I could not accept the prospect of having students go to school when we were unclear about their exposures and our ability to keep them safe. So I voted no. I'm happy subsequently that the governor changed his mind and gave us the option to go virtual, because that provided an opportunity to give our students an opportunity to learn in a safer environments in their own homes, as opposed to risking it in our school environments. As to when we will think that they will go back, this is, as a health practitioner, this is a medical problem and a medical decision. This has to be judged with conjunction of the county and the city's Department of Health. We have to make determine what are the levels of COVID in the city, what's the rate of infections, and the hospital the hospital rates that we are experiencing as we move forward. If those rates come down, and I suspect that they won't, given the fact that during the fall, the winter and fall months, you're going to have a lot more indoor activities, and you will see subsequent spikes in infections. Therefore, I don't see that happening right away. But when those numbers it becomes safer, and those numbers reflect an increased safety, then we can go ahead and support the reopening of schools. And I don't see it happening before then.
Thank you, Dr. Hodges. Commissioner Simmons? Commissioner Simmons, you're on mute.
Thank you. So going back, it's simple. Like as Commissioner Ramirez said, when it's safe. The district did put together a phenomenal reentry plan, but just before, even though we voted to approve that plan, because we still have to have that plan, we introduced a resolution that we would go remote 100%, despite at the time, prior to the governor even changing his mind, because it just wasn't safe. So I understood on one hand we had to have the plan for when that time comes, but it just didn't make sense. And if we are following the same trends that happened in the spring, if you look at what's happening in Europe right now, I think Italy had 19,000 cases just recently. So phase 2 is here, and I predict. I'm just following that data, following that trend. We'll start to see those same numbers here soon. We've already starting to begin to see them in southern and central New Jersey. So, again, we have to make sure it's safe. And only when it's safe will we re-enter buildings, and only when it's safe and we can keep students and teachers safe will we re-enter. In terms of remote learning, it's new for most, and it's a struggle. But we will get through it. It's going to take everyone. And there has to be constant training with teachers and students and parents, and we have to continue to make sure that everyone is trained and comfortable. But for the time being, this is where we are. So we have to adapt to this change and make sure our students are learning at the same time.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Ms. Lemon?
Thank you for that question. When I think of remote learning, I think of those grandparent households or even the regular households that are not technological savvy, and now they have to be the technical support system for their children. And even just those children who need that physical contact and that school setting for them to succeed. But the healthy and the lives of our staff and children are most important. So first, I would not support sending our children back to school if our transmission rates are spiking and getting higher. We have to firstly listen to our scientists, listen to our doctors, listen to those medical professionals that can ensure our safety. But we also have to be prepared for the return back. I think of all the social and emotional trauma and experiences that our children are facing as far as anxiety and social isolation. And like I mentioned before, we don't know what goes on in their households. So maybe, their happy place or going to school was the better part of their lives. So socially and emotionally, we need to be prepared for the return back. And on top of the academic loss, we know about the summer slide and when children are not in school and, what they learned throughout the year might have went away, but it's literally been months. I'm curious to know exactly how many families and children are having good experiences with remote learning. And maybe as a district, we can use this as a learning experience and maybe as a teaching tool to see if we have a good amount of students who could continue to learn virtually. And maybe we can restructure this class sizes and continue to have those students, if we're tracking and monitoring who's actually doing good with remote learning, maybe they can continue to do remote learning. And maybe that could be a new avenue. When school does come back in session, how many families will be interested in staying remote? So it can be a learning experience to see how it can restructure our learning going forward. But I would support keeping the schools closed until we can guarantee the safety of our children and of our staff.
Thank you so much. And we're coming to the end. If we have more time, we have some great questions that have come in, but because of time constraints, this was a great forum to allow the community, and I want you to share this. I commend Channel 52. They have an amazing platform. And I've seen over 5,000 people view this platform. So this is a great opportunity. And I want to thank you all for accepting the opportunity to be a part of this platform so that the community can hear. Once again, community, you have three choices to select from the panel of the individuals that are running. And they have come on tonight. We have Dr. Hodges, who has come on tonight, Shaniqua Lemon, who is on tonight, Joel Ramirez, who is on tonight, Herman Irvin, who is on tonight, and Kenneth Simmons, who has joined us on tonight to share their platform and to answer questions that were not given to them in advance. So it has been on the fly, literally.
That's important.
That was important.
Yes, it is.
Nope. And no flies landed on anyone's head. So that was a good thing.
Amen.
So I want to thank my amazing co-facilitator, Miss Commissioner Amber, who I absolutely adore. Thank you so much. And so this is the final, it's a one word thought, and then your closing statement. Give me one word for education, and then I want you to do your closing statement. So we'll start first with Kenneth Simmons. If you will give one, when someone asks you education, what is the word that comes to you? And then your closing statement. So in total, you have 3 minutes to close.
Achievement. As I stated earlier, you know, the focus on student achievement has to be at the student, is the center of everything we do. Every business decision we make, every hire we make, from custodian to superintendent, and everybody has to be focused on that. And so in order to do that, I'm going to say this shameless plug to help continue to move this district forward. I'm humbly asking, Paterson community to reelect me to continue the work that I've been doing with moving the district forward. We've instituted some great programs and some great schools during my time on the board. We've moved towards local control because we are now in transition, and we are expecting to cross the finish line and be handed local control or given the keys to the kingdom sometime in early 2021. So I want to continue doing this work. I am committed to this work. Throughout this pandemic, my commitment has not wavered, although I have been affected personally. My commitment to the children and the staff and the community of Paterson has not wavered, and it will not waver. And I want to continue. So as you receive your ballots, and they are starting to come in, remember 5J. I'm on the left, all the way or on the right, at the bottom, all the way at the right, all the way at the bottom. So go over and go all the way down, and 6J. And remember to, as the councilwoman said, bubble, 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 bubble it in. But again, thank you, Channel 52, for having me, and thank you for allowing us to present our platforms.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Mr. Irving?
One word that I would like to say is promise. And behind promise, it's that I promise to do everything in my power to make sure that our young men and women get the education that they need, the resources that they deserve, and the education that should be given to them the same way how it's given in other cities. Paterson, I humbly come to you all and I say thank you very much for allowing all of us to explain to you why we want to run. I want to run because I love my city. I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she's just starting education. And like I said before, this is my home. This is her home. And coming from here, and I want her to be able to have the same opportunities like every other kid in every other city does. And with that happening, every other child deserves to have the exact same thing. And that's what my fight is. My fight is to make sure that our young men and women get everything that they need. Make sure that our teachers have the resources that they need to make sure that our young men and women are able to be successful as everywhere else, in other cities. You know, I say this and I will continue to say it. Everybody continues to talk about our city, that, there's a lot of trouble, like our children, don't want to learn, or they're not as good as everybody else. And to that I say, excuse me, but kick rocks. And I do mean that, because our young men and women, they're talented. They are some of the most talented children. But the problem is we don't have the resources, entirely. And we need that. We need to get all the funding for our young men and women. Like, we need that. Like, we need to make sure that our teachers have all the resources. They need that. Our parents need all the resources. They need that. So come November 3rd, and before then, with your mail-in ballots, please look at 5J for Herman Irving, Paterson firefighter. Remember, I said this once and I say it again. I don't just fight fires, I fight for you as well. So thank you, Paterson. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Irvin. Mr. Joel Ramirez.
Thank you again for the opportunity. One word: education is liberating. Education can move you up the socioeconomic ladder. You do not have to accept the conditions you grew in. When you get educated, you can actually make changes in life. You can get to be someone like me, who grew up on Main Street in Paterson, an immigrant, came to Paterson when I was 3 years old with my family. I got educated, and with my first job, I was able to get my first home at 24 years old and move my family from a small, tiny apartment on Main Street in front of St. John's Cathedral to our own home now, and on the Riverside section of the city of Paterson. Education will empower you. Education will open all of the doors that you seek to open. So please re-elect me. I think I've been reliable. I've been honest. I've been bold, as my colleagues know. And I look forward to serving all of the communities of the city of Paterson with dignity and respect. So please, when your ballot arrives, bubble in 3J Ramirez 2020 for the Board of Education. I appreciate the opportunity once more. Amber, Sarah, Anand, thank you so much for putting this together. And keep up the great work. Paterson, the best is yet to come. 3J Ramirez for Board of Education.
Thank you, Commissioner Ramirez. Shaniqua Lemon.
Firstly, I would like to say again, thank you to Channel 52, Amber, and everyone else that's involved with putting this together for the community and just for ourselves to listen to one another. My word will be purpose. And I say purpose because through education, you get to experience, you get to learn, you get to put your hands in it and get exposed to many different things. Not only academic education, but our arts, our scientists, our music, allowing our children to experience different avenues, giving them our avenues once they are finished graduating. I say purpose because education here in Paterson, it made me who I am today. It makes me be the first one in my family to graduate. It allowed me to be the first one in my family to have a business. And it allowed me to even have the confidence to even put myself in this here talking to you right now, to fulfill my purpose, for me to put myself out there to do more for my city. During this campaign season, my first campaign season, I met so many great people. I was able to connect and learn about different organizations and see who individuals are. So with purpose and with education, it's all about community and bringing it back together. With us moving to local control, or in a couple months becoming officially local control district, we are all stakeholders. Whether you're a parent, a pastor, or someone that works in the corner store, we all have a voice, and we all can work together to make an education system that will be effective for our children. So when you jot in your bubble, when you see my name and think of 2J, I want you to think of a person with purpose and passion. Someone who literally, education is my life. I'm still growing, I'm still learning, it's lifelong. And even with this, I come to realize that It even was in my heart to even start a nonprofit. My next picture for children who don't experience the drug use, because again, for me, it's about the voice of those children who don't have a voice for them. So we think today and think of purpose.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lemon. Dr. Hodges.
I want to thank Channel 52 and Amber for providing this opportunity for the citizens of Paterson to make a fair choice for the Board of Education. My word would be freedom. Your education frees you from the chains of poverty that stand in your way. It frees you to make choices, that better choices in your life, and gives you the opportunity to move forward and escape the poverty that this city represents at times. You should not have to struggle educationally the way we do in this city. You should not have to fight for funding and fight for educational services the way we do in this city. And I've had to fight since 2002 when I came on the board to make improvements to get us where we are now, to take us from that struggle in the beginning where the state took us over to bring us out where we are now with increased funding and educational opportunities for our students. Educational excellence is what I support, what I stand for, what I've worked for, what I've fought for, and what I'm going to continue to fight for in the city of Paterson. You have bright children. They deserve a decent educational system. They deserve the opportunity to move forward and to compete with other children outside of this city at comfortable levels and to become globally successful and lifelong learners. That's what I'm looking to develop in the city of Paterson. That's what we're able to do with a brand new system, a brand new purpose, a brand new approach, and I'm hopeful that we can deliver that in the years to come. Thank you, Paterson, for giving me the opportunity to serve you for the last 18 years, and I look forward to continuing that process.
Thank you to all of our school board candidates that have come on tonight to express their platforms and to answer the questions. Once again, thank you to Channel 52 and to my co-host, Commissioner Amber, for putting these questions together on the fly. Last night, I've been doing jokes on fly all day, but on the fly. Last night, thank you for working with me late last night to put this together. We really appreciate it. Paterson, please vote. You have an opportunity. There are 6 candidates and you have 3 choices. As Commissioner Simmons has already stated, go down to the ballot to the far right on the bottom in row J and bubble in 3 names. Share this video and make sure everyone watches so that if you're not decided, you can make a clear and honest decision on who you would want to sit and advocate on behalf of your children. Thank you so much, Commissioner Amber.
Thank you so much. I really want to appreciate each and every one of you guys for giving your time, Councilwoman, for doing this with me and giving me the opportunity. I do want to tell, we had lots of viewers with lots of questions and we could not take it because of the constraining of time. We have huge, beautiful acronyms here: freedom, perfect, liberating, promise, achievement. These are your words, and we have the opportunity to decide. Thank you for allowing all of us to come together. It's not easy, and I really appreciate. And our parents, we have the ability to choose among these 3, whichever would be the 3 choices. And I wish all of you guys all the best.
Thank you.
Jonathan Hodges, 1J. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
You too. Thank you so much.